Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we'll be covering the best 2 characters of each element. Similar to the previous one I made before, there will be no ranking system, and I will be covering every character that's in the game up to the ones that we will be receiving this month. What I also want to try and do in this video is make team compositions, so just keep in mind that this will be heavily opinionated, and I highly recommend that if you don't agree with any of the decisions that I made in this video, definitely feel free to explain yourself in the comment section. So with that in mind, definitely be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And as usual, we will be starting with the fire element. With my first pick, I had to go with Yuffie. Yuffie is extremely unique as far as being able to avoid guaranteed hits. And with the influx of cards that fire got, I feel like there's just so much synergy when it comes down to fire evasion. She's somebody who's just going to have a lot of means of chaining people down. She can remove protect, as well as raising her own slash penetration and having a means of inflicting blind. Something else that helps her is not being limited to just slash damage. She also has Dragoon, so that's something else that you can definitely use. And her Brumal form plus is just really good for keeping her alive. I think it's safe to say that she earned her spot as far as being on this list. As for the next character, I had to still go with Pissarro, talking about synergy. The card that came with him is just something else that just really complements the team as a whole. And since I went into deep detail about him in the previous video, I'm not going to really go into depth with him. I feel like we're all familiar with Pissarro at this point, and just how devastating that fire team can really be. As far as the team composition, I had to go with Yuffie, Pissarro, and King Mont. The card that came with Yuffie is just extremely powerful and usable when it comes down to that team comp. I never really thought I would see an evasive Mont, but it definitely can happen. I feel like if you don't have Yuffie, or maybe you don't have Pissarro, and maybe you just went for their cards instead, I kind of do want to make a recommendation if maybe you're missing one of those characters. I feel like King Mont is an absolute staple, and him being in the general pool, if you're playing fire, I feel like you should have him. So if you're missing either one of them, I feel like Sweetheart Ildira can easily take the place of one of them. The team may not be as good, but she does have reflex working for her. She's somebody who can definitely chain someone down. And Operative does have a means of giving AP restoration, so you don't have to feel too pressured about giving her bells. Overall, Fire just got a huge facelift, and it's definitely not looking the same as it was previously to this year. Now we're moving to Ice, and this is probably going to be highly debatable, but I feel like I had to just go with what I truly felt was the best overall 2 units. Starting out with my first pick, I had to go with Snow. Obviously, he's still really strong, still a very tanky guy, and he could very possibly just be the outright best Ice unit in the game. And as for my second pick, I personally had to go with Fravia. I feel like her Dream Enhancement gave her everything that she was really missing. And although she doesn't have Courage or Re-Raise, these are things that can be supplemented through a TMR or possibly just a unit that she's running with. Now, Fravia does have a weakness to strike attacks, and there are a decent amount of magical units that can deal that damage. But aside from that, she's just going to be extremely hard to take down when it comes down to just pure magical teams, or maybe just a team that really relies on magical damage. And if you're running her the right way, it's going to be really hard to debuff her as well. As far as team composition goes, when it comes down to it, they're not really going to run with each other. I wouldn't assume so. So as far as the team composition for Snow, I had to go with Barret and Velis. I feel like they complement each other very well. Barret with his Dream Enhancement is just really pushed over the edge, and it's just extremely helpful. And if you don't have Barret, I would have to replace him with Alea. She can just go right into her Ice attack buff and then buff herself and raise her own CT. So personally for me, that sounds like a pretty scary team. And as far as Fravia goes, I'm gonna have to switch it up a little bit. I would keep Barret, but I would have to add Rosa instead of Velis. Rosa's gonna just be able to raise Spirit, and since you're gonna be targeting magical teams, this is something that's just gonna have more synergy when it comes down to it. Once again, if you don't have Barret, or maybe you don't have Rosa and Barret, I would just replace both of them with Velis and Alea. So it's not gonna be as difficult to try and get those two. Now moving on to Wind. Flag Bearer reform, Glaciella is still going to be here. She's still powerful, still annoying, and just a nuisance when it comes down to it. She just offers Wind so much, and I'm pretty sure that everybody can probably attest to that. Now going with the second pick, I had to go with Rizal. Rizal is somebody who has a lot of good AoEs. She's somebody who can just give herself Protect and Shell, which is kind of really good. Has HP absorption, means of lowering healing power, raising her own slash resistance, just a lot of things that are just so good. Dispelling auto revive is something else that just works in her favor, and I feel like her and Glaciella are just going to have a lot of synergy with each other. And there were definitely times where Rizal just kind of surprised me. As far as the team composition, I had to go with Glassy, Rizal, and maybe Sottile. Glassy is somebody who can really just make herself tanky, and being able to give her that hate and that re-raise as well is just going to make her more annoying and obnoxious to deal with. I feel like if you're missing one, you can definitely replace either one with June. June is still really good. She's going to eventually get her Dream Enhancement. And although Wind doesn't feel like it's as powerful as it used to be, it's still going to be a menace, and it's definitely not suffering like the next element we're going to go into. Now, as far as Earth goes, it has not changed at all. I feel like it's still going to be Resnick and Zazan, pretty much for the exact same reasons I mentioned in the previous video. Although I feel like Earth has a lot of really good cards, the issue is that I feel like they rely on a lot of things that I feel like can be easily countered. So when it comes to Earth, you're definitely going to want to avoid Sephiroth like crazy. or you're going to want to stack that slash resistance as much as possible. I did look ahead and try to see what Killfei got, and although she's going to get a really decent dream enhancement, they did not give her means of raising her hate beyond using the taunting spell. There will be a future character that can retain hate on his own named Dialdo, so we'll just have to see how good he's going to be, and maybe he can help Earth out a little bit, because they are definitely going to need it. They need a reliable tank. You can definitely use Zazan as a tank, but evasion is just something that I feel like is going to be countered. Yuffie just really changed the game when it comes down to being able to avoid guaranteed hits. So for the time being, I just think it's safe to say that Earth is just probably the worst element in the game. As far as team compositions, I did have to go with Resnick, Zazan, and Queen Ma Cherie. One of the main issues that I see with this team is that Zazan is just somebody who's an extremely selfish character. He's going to want to buff himself, and on top of that, he's going to be really fast. And usually whenever I run against him, he's just like outright the first one to die. His dream enhancement was pretty good, so I can't really just blame the character outright alone. It's mainly just the team comps that you have available to you in Earth. And I feel like if you're missing maybe Resnick or Zazan, you can definitely replace one of them with Rugia. He at least has the range, unlike Killfei, to kind of deal some damage and not be so late to the party. And he does have some decent stuff in his kit. Now, as far as the lightning element goes, I did have to leave Summer Helena on here. She's, once again, just really powerful, really strong unit, a lot of guaranteed hits, and Lightning has a lot of really powerful cards to kind of just complement her build. But as for the second unit, I had to go with Alphonse. This guy is going to be a terror when he gets into the game. He can easily replace Charlotte or Esther on your team. And the reason why he replaced Esther is that he has his own means of generating hate without having to go into his skill. With all the strike cards that we're going to have access to, he can easily be in a rainbow team. And I really can't wait to see this guy come into the game, honestly. As far as the team composition goes, I can see him working with Summer Helena. Maybe you want to put Esther on that team, or maybe Lightning. Lightning, somebody else who can raise that accuracy. And Alphonse will make it easier for her to survive, and maybe just don't have to worry about AoE damage. Moving on to water, Stelis is still here. Stelis is still good. Most definitely still an annoying character to deal with, and somebody I still run to this day as far as a water team goes for PvP. But as for the second choice, I did have to replace Astraeus with Amnelis. Amnelis is just universally better, and one of the bigger things that I feel like works for her is having a lot of synergy when it comes to that HP buff. So if Stelis is taking a lot of damage, the buff that she does receive from Amnelis can just give her that heal and just keep her relevant in the fight. Aside from that, she's also somebody who can ignore the runic ability and still have access to being able to hit your team. She has a lot of range and just honestly makes Summer LC not feel as good as she used to be. As far as the team composition goes, I would have to go with Celis, Amnelis, and maybe Astraeus. You can easily replace one of these guys with Perrine. It's definitely going to be a pretty high cost team, but it's definitely a powerful one in its own right. Now when it comes to Light, Starlight Elena is still here. Her dream enhancement just kind of makes it easier for her to go up against evasion teams, although it does feel like she didn't get the things that she needs. For me personally, I would have loved to have seen her get more evasion or more luck. It's going to make it a little bit easier for her to face dark teams and try to stack that dark resistance. And as far as the second pick, it has to be Warrior of Light. This guy just became so much more annoying, so much more tanky. I feel like all the enhancements that he got just really helped him to just become more of a true tank, and it's so easy for him to heal back all the damage that was dealt to him. As far as the team composition goes, I would easily have to say Starlight Elena and Wall are going to have a lot of synergy. You can definitely throw in Sylvie, and it will really help that team stay alive and just be more annoying, let Wall do Wall things. And if he dies, I mean, worst case scenario, you still have full life. Let's say maybe you're missing one of those, you can still use Locke. Locke is not that bad. I just feel like Light is really going to want to run that team. And the main issue with running Locke is that if he gets that re-raise slapped off of him and he gets one shot, that's pretty much game over for him. So if you're a Light main, I would have to recommend you go for Sylvie and get her built up as soon as possible. And last but not least, we have Dark. And with Dark, it is no surprise that Sephiroth is here. This guy is an absolute monster. Courage and re-raise removal off of one skill, that's a guaranteed hit. Even if it doesn't hit, you can just kiss that Courage and re-raise goodbye. It's going to be extremely easy to build Dark for accuracy, maybe unless you're missing that Persona card. And aside having to deal with Sephiroth just in general, you do still have Halloween Lucia, who is our second pick. Still annoying, still obnoxious to deal with, for all the reasons that I mentioned in the previous video. As far as a team composition, you can definitely run the two with each other. You can throw in Joker as well. Joker is still really good for previous reasons. And if you're missing one of them, you can definitely still use Dark Fina. Dark Fina is going to get her dream enhancement, and I feel like it's not as good as it could have been, but the stat enhancements that she does get with it are pretty good. This is going to raise her accuracy as well as her magic attack, so she's probably not going to be missing a lot of evasion teams, and not having to rely on guaranteed hits is just going to be a huge bonus. You really want to try and run accurate builds, especially when more units get this guaranteed hit evasive passive. And that'll pretty much do it for the video. Once again, these videos definitely take a lot of time to make, so I would really appreciate it if you liked the video and maybe subscribe to the channel. I will definitely try to do another one of these maybe every 3 months. One of the main reasons why I really like doing these videos is I get to see how much the meta's changed and definitely share that with the viewers. I appreciate you guys for checking the video out, and I hope you have a nice day. Take it easy.